Let's talk BYU football at Georgia Southern. What is it? The Eagles?
The Eagles.
The
Fly, Eagles, fly.
the Eagles of Georgia Southern. And BYU this weekend in what can only be called a tune-up for SC. By the way, did you see that Jackson Dart is going to start for USC against UCLA? But BYU is going to Georgia Southern to prove a point. Or are they? Because there is this debate, and we had this debate 2 weeks ago, as BYU coasted to a victory. And in one person's opinion, that'd be me, left an opportunity on the table by only scoring 59 points. So, Jake, the question is BYU too nice?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they didn't handle their business, and I think they could probably be 12th or 11th right now if they had put a whooping down before. So I think this game, it just serves as an example of, put up 65, put up 70. Hell, if you're in a position, put up 80. Crush them, don't stop. And I think that we're seeing that, yes, style points matter. We did a whole segment last week on the show about how style points absolutely matter to the committee. It's a group of people sitting around a table, looking at schedules on a massive TV and talking about this and talking about that. And is that a quality loss? Is that a quality win? All these different things. And so, yeah, is BYU too nice? Absolutely, they're too nice. I mean, I don't understand why you wouldn't rack it up against Idaho State. So, at the end of the day, I just hope that they learn their lesson. And that's something that I'll be looking for. I don't want to hear from, McChesney or any of the third, fourth, fifth stringers on this team. I don't want to hear from them. It's not your time. That was week 1 and week 2. We're well past that now. So I just think you got to come out and roll this team.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that we all get caught up in, and I think we're I'm as guilty as anybody about this, is I just want to win football games, and I want to win them convincingly. But why was BYU not taking it easy against Oregon, at the Moda Center the other night?
Mm-hmm.
Why was that cool to beat a team by 40? But we can't do that. It's Georgia Southern.
Yeah, not in football. We can't do that in football.
But that's my point.
Yeah.
What are we here to be nice, or are we here to win games? And I know a lot of BYU fans got really upset when I said that, but my belief is BYU has everything to play for here. BYU football has everything to prove to the NCAA College Football Playoff Committee. And if we've learned anything over the first 2 weeks of this poll in these rankings, it's that performances and impressions matter. And it matters little what you've done on your schedule. You're 14th in the college football playoff rankings, and you have an opportunity to be much higher than that. You have a chance, in my opinion, in the next 3 weeks to end up as the 10th team in the country. I think if everything broke perfectly, I think your highest, best place is 10th in the rankings.
Yeah.
But the only way you get there is by dominating Georgia Southern and sending a true message, and that is, hey, I would love to see a 70-0 win over Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
I would love to see no concern for Georgia Southern, all concern for the BYU Cougars getting into the New Year's Six Bowl. And they're in position to do that, but I don't know that Kalani Sitake's willing to, put his foot on the neck of Georgia Southern, Jake, and I think it's a huge problem, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will say, oh, well, that's because BYU has morals and standards and the honor code and this and that and the other. And I think it comes down to not the honor code, but just, I think the way Kalani runs the program, it's very, there's a lot of respect and sportsmanship and playing the game the right way, which I appreciate. I think, a lot of programs out there are not like that. But in these cases, when you're trying to accomplish things and do big things in your sport, there are times when you're asked to do things that maybe you wouldn't otherwise do, like put up 70 on Georgia Southern and Idaho State. And so I just think that this is not a difficult concept. This is not something that needs to be, questioned. This is something that they absolutely should do. And if they don't do it, let's say that they put up 50 and they allow 20, I just think that that's not quite good enough. I think you need to be higher than that. So I don't know. I think at the end of the day, this is a great program. This is a great football team. They're doing great things. However, there's more room. There's more room to get better, to go farther, and when you get into the Big 12, you better be ready because again, you're not going to be playing some cupcake schedule in the Big 12. You're not going to get these cupcake teams. You're getting a legit matchup every single week, and that's why you have a clear path to the college football playoffs. So maybe we don't have to have these conversations anymore in 2 years, but I just think right now there's just, for lack of a better word, there's just no reason not to come out and just absolutely torch this team. There's none.
How confident are you, though, that BYU is truly one of the 10 best teams in the country?
Oh, I'm pretty confident in it. I think when they're their best, I mean, I think they have one of the best running backs in the country by anybody's measure. I think Tyler Algier could go and play for Alabama in the SEC, and he'd be just fine. I really, truly believe that. I think he's a powerful back. I think he's a really physical runner. I think he embraces running people over. And I think that's what you need out of your running back. Now, as far as, the other skill positions go, I don't know. I mean, you never really know how good you are until you play literally the best talent the world has to offer. So, any of the wide receivers you look at, would they be as good as they are if they were playing the SEC? I don't know, man. But what I can say is that, yeah, I can definitively say I think BYU is a top 10 team. I don't think they're a top 8 team. But I definitely think they're a top 10 team. I think they've earned that, and I think they're there. And I think the problem is not the quality on the field. I think it's optics. I think it's showing people that you're not scared to demoralize teams. I think it's showing people that you're way better than USC is. And at the end of the day, you just need to go out and handle your business. And it really would be unfortunate if they put up, let's say they only put up 40 against Georgia Southern, which I doubt will happen. I think they'll put up a hell of a lot more than that. But let's say they only put up 40. That'd be really unfortunate because that sends the wrong message. That sends the message that you're just kind of good, that you're not like really, really good. So this is the basketball thing. What would we have been talking about if they only won that game by 20 points, let's say, instead of 30 points? Like 30 is a lot heavier than 20. So it matters. But yes, I do think they're a top 10 team, and I do think they're going to just rout Georgia Southern, and I'd love to see them beat USC by 20. However, I have this feeling about the USC game that I think that's going to actually be a tight game. I don't know that they're going to go down there and blow them out.
I think if Jackson Dart if he plays, because again, not to be redundant here, because I just said this a few minutes ago, but Jackson Dart's starting for USC against UCLA. I mean, he is their guy. Is Jackson Dart a guy that is a difference maker? And I think he is. I think when he's 100%, I think what we saw 2 weeks ago, he looked rusty, right? But, I mean, he's coming off of a knee injury with the cartilage repair, so you would expect that. But you would think he's going to play the whole 9 against UCLA. You would think that Jackson Dart would be in much better shape. You would think he'd be much more football ready. Will he be able to run the way he had previously? He didn't, last week. So we'll see about that. But I think it's going to be a nail-biter against SC, and that's why I say, again, it's Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
You got to go do what you got to do against Georgia Southern. And I say have no pity. Have no mercy. Show absolute killer instinct against Georgia Southern because I don't know. I guess maybe this is just my opinion, but I feel pretty passionately that BYU's one of the I think they're one of the top 10 to 15 teams in the country.
Yeah.
They are just on the outside looking in. And my frustration is that you hear all about, oh, well, what about, Cincinnati? Cincinnati has played nobody. They have played nobody. And you can say, well, they beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame's an average team. We've talked about that repeatedly on this show.
Yeah.
Cincinnati has not proven to me to be any better than BYU is. And yet here they are all the way at the top of the poll, and people just write it off like, hey, it's Cincinnati. Of course they're there.
Yeah, somehow, even though they've never done anything. And I just don't know how that works.
Yeah, I just don't know how in this moment in time you can make an argument that BYU is not, and I'm comfortable saying a top 12 team.
I mean, Cincinnati fan is going to say, well, you're saying that BYU's played people. They have 5 P5 wins currently and potentially 6 with USC, but that's the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is not good. That's what Cincinnati fans going to say. And I'm going to say, yeah, but if the Pac-12 is not good,
Who
your
have you
schedule is
played?
not good.
I mean, who have you played?
And so that's my point. At least BYU can say, hey, we've got 5 P5 wins, hopefully 6, So that's all that matters.
I think it's ridiculous at Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's 3rd in the AP poll. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I just
don't know what they're looking at. I mean, other than, I guess, record, but, I just don't – This is, again, let's not go down the rabbit hole of, the nonsense that is the college football committee. But, I think, for BYU, the cool thing and the crappy thing is that you're BYU, meaning that you have the brand recognition, everybody knows you, you're on ESPN, you've got a ton of visibility. So the great part about that is when you go out and you wreck Georgia Southern, okay, great. Everyone's going to, that's going to be a nationally televised game and everything, and that's going to be awesome. But then, going to USC, I think people are going to say, oh, well, it's BYU. They may struggle against USC because it's USC. So I don't know. That's why I think that's a statement
USC might
game.
struggle against BYU.
I agree. I think BYU is going to do fine against SC. I think BYU is going to win that game by 10 points. Like, I think they're going to be fine. But I think there are a lot of doubters out there, specifically on the eastern side of the country.
Yeah, we'll see. CJ says Coug fans handing the Pac-12 another loss yesterday, this time from the ladies basketball team. Come on. Anyway. He also says, fine, put 70 on Georgia Southern so we don't have to hear this argument again. But tell me I'm wrong. That's the thing that.
Why are we tired of talking about this? Can I just ask that question? Why are we tired of talking about this? Because would you rather be talking about this? Or would you rather be talking about not getting into a New Year's Six? That's my question for BYU fans. Because if you're not in a New Year's Six, that means you're just in another average bowl, and all this work you put in and everything that you went through this year, it wasn't for nothing, but it just doesn't quite feel as good. It doesn't quite feel as worth it.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm just like, hey, rather than wanting to talk about, well, we're in the Cheez-It Weed Eater Bowl, let's get into a New Year's Six bowl.
Are we not going to get a Waxahachie State?
A Waxahachie State bowl against some rando.
Thank you for rando. That's what I think it comes down to. If let's play a little better than game.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to say that BYU is not better than Georgia.
No.
Not better than Alabama.
No.
Are they better than Oregon?
I think it's very close.
Are they better than Ohio State? Close.
I think that's close too.
Are they better than Cincinnati?
Yes.
I believe they are. Are they better than Michigan? I believe they are. Yeah. Are they better than Michigan State? I don't think so.
That's the one where I'm like, okay, Michigan State has, the loss or whatever, but I think at the end of the day, you are looking at these two teams and you're like, okay, if they battled, how would this play out? And see, this conversation right here is exactly what the committee's doing. They're just going up and down the stack. And you notice, to your point, by the way, I don't think this got pointed out yesterday on the show. Notice BYU didn't move on the bye week. They were not penalized, and you said I had some concerns about it, but you yourself said, hey, they're not going to be penalized for the bye week.
No.
And they weren't. So they stayed right at 14. And so, okay, so let's keep going down the list here. No, I don't think they're better than Michigan State.
Michigan State, with the way Kenneth Walker is playing, I think Michigan State, I would give Michigan State the edge. I just think that they're a big, I mean, they're very good. They're
well coached.
They're going to put up 200 yards on you. And, yeah, Mel Tucker's about to get paid.
Yeah, and he deserves that.
Holy cow, he's going to get paid.
Yeah.
And see, this is the one that's going to probably be controversial. Notre Dame.
They're better than Notre Dame.
I would agree with that because I think I look at the way that BYU handled Virginia.
Yeah.
And having watched most of the Virginia Notre Dame game, I'm just telling you that, look, with all due respect, Jack Cohn's a nice little quarterback. But that's the extent of it. I mean, if this team doesn't run, they threw for 174 yards on Virginia.
Sorry, folks, that's what it is.
174 yards. Now, they ran for 249, and you're not going to lose a whole lot of football games where you run for 249 yards. And I think you saw that, when you have backup quarterbacks playing for Virginia, they're not nearly as good.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, too, and this is what I think nobody talks about with BYU, when BYU wants to road grade you, they have that ability. Like, they don't do it all the time, but you'll notice that because you have Tyler Algier back there, if you were to formulate a game plan against Notre Dame, it would be predicated off of the run. You would want to run Notre Dame over, and then you'd want to get the passing game going. Because again, just like you were saying, when BYU it gets to 200 yards, just like when Notre Dame got to 250 or whatever it was, you're going to win that game. It's over.
It's over. I think BYU's better than Notre Dame this year.
I agree.
I think on an annual basis, Notre Dame should be better than BYU.
Yeah.
And we'll see how that changes if Kalani can get a higher level of line play and line recruit. Going into the Big 12, we'll see how that all plays out, because that ultimately that's been the difference with Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Notre Dame comes to mind. The bigger physical teams, Utah, for a lot of these years, where before BYU won this year, it was because Utah was bigger and more physical up front than BYU. Going into the Big 12, you would think that you would be consistently bigger and that your grocery bill would go up because your linemen would be beefier, right?
Yeah.
I think they're better than Notre Dame. I don't like a team like Oklahoma State. I think Oklahoma State might be better than BYU. That'd be a hell of a football game. BYU is better than Wake Forest. I think, you look at number 11, there's Baylor sitting there. I don't know. Jaron Hall was not 100% against Baylor.
They're just as good as Baylor. They're not better. I think BYU didn't have their best when they played Baylor, and I think they paid the price for that.
Ole Miss is interesting. Ole Miss finally has athletes. Well,
yeah.
I don't put a lot into whether in the SEC they're better than everybody else, but I look at Ole Miss. I like the way they play football. Lane Kiffin's an innovator. They have athletes. I look at Oklahoma. I don't know what Oklahoma is. We're going to find out over the next 2 weeks, because Oklahoma's got Iowa State and then Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And they're coming off of a bad loss at Baylor. So let's find out who Lincoln Riley is. Right? I mean, and that Oklahoma State game, Bedlam, is in Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I think so.
Stillwater.
I think BYU is just as good as most of these teams, and they're definitely they're definitely better than some of these teams. I think the factor that's not on BYU's side is what have you done reputationally speaking the last couple of years? So like Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon, these teams that are in the conversation every year are going to get a little bit more of a nod, in my opinion, just naturally than BYU would. Now, again, we're talking about teams that are top 5 teams in the country, so there's that as well. But,
and then the I'm hesitating.
Did we get a San Diego State reference yet?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm hesitating to bring this next point up.
JIMMER?
No. Why?
Shout to Mobamba.
Why? Okay, I mean, I'll just bail out by saying it. The East Coast bias that exists in major college football. I don't know. I wonder how much the Boise loss is going to hurt you, because not very many people saw that game. So you're either on one side of the line or the other. Well, not very many people saw that game, and you just had an off week. Regional rivalry, but it's Boise. Or is it, if you were any good, you'd beat Boise? That's the question.
I think it's the latter.
Because nobody saw that game. They're going to read box scores. They're going to see the turnovers. But and this goes, and I know, BYU fan, take it easy. I know this is where it comes into, what did they do against their lesser opponents?
Whatever.
Right? And when you look at the schedule and you see back-to-back losses and then back-to-back wins against Washington State and Virginia, I could make the case BYU plays down to their opponent.
Yeah.
Okay. But then what do you say about Idaho State in 59-14? What do you say about, Georgia Southern, they only scored 35, and because nobody's watching BYU and Georgia Southern.
What?
Nobody's watching that game. I'm just
There's
telling
not better
you now.
things on TV?
I'm just telling you now. The problem is that's a 2:00 game, which means 4:00 on the East Coast, and there are a ton of games this weekend at that time. And I'm telling you right now that people are just going to look up and down your schedule, and they're going to say, wow, look at that. They beat Virginia by scoring 66. They scored 59 on Idaho State. And look at that. They put up a 70 spot against Georgia Southern.
Yeah.
And let's pretend that you scored 35 and you beat USC. You're a top 10 team. In my opinion, you're a top 10 team. And I'm telling you right now, look at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's going to play Georgia Tech. There's going to be a ton of people watching that game.
Yeah.
Because they're 8th in the country.
By the way, this game is only on ESPN Plus.
Yeah, it's not on TV.
It's not on TV.
So you look at the fact that you have Michigan State and Ohio State in the morning, which is probably the game of the day, right? And as you go up and down the schedule as it gets later, Alabama, Arkansas, oh, that's at 1:30. You kick off at 2.
Yeah. I mean, it's no secret nobody's watching that game. Come on.
But that's my point.
That's why you got to put up 7.
If you're on the committee and you're putting your rankings together this week, and you got to figure out, well, hey, Ohio State and Michigan State, and Ohio State's probably going to win that game.
Yep.
Ohio State, I think, is favored by 20. Ohio State, Michigan State at the shoe. Let's surmise Ohio State wins that game. Now Michigan State has 2 losses. How far do they fall?
Not outside the top 10.
They'll be outside the top 10. You're 7th in the rankings now. You're 7th in the rankings now. You lose 2 in a row, you're done. You're out of the top 10. My guess is, and this is the same thing for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Oklahoma has to win, and they got to do it impressively, right? You look at the fact that you would have lost 2 of 3. You lost at Purdue. You beat Maryland, who sucks out loud. And then you go to the shoe, and you lose to Ohio State. You're probably 12th, 13th. You're gonna plummet. And what does that mean for BYU? Okay, bump them up. They're 13th at least. They're moving up a spot.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna beat Georgia Southern. Put a 70 spot up, right? I look at Notre Dame. That could happen. By the way, I also look at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is 8-2. Ole Miss has 0 room for error against Vandy and Mississippi State. 0 room
can't lose
for
that
error.
game.
0, right? I'm telling you, BYU has a path to the top 10. Score 70 points against Georgia Southern.
Yeah, don't be nice.
Don't make friends. Don't go there to be like, hey man, really appreciate this. No, we're kicking your ass. It's not personal, it's business.
Yep.